It's Mike Johnson with us. And Mike, let's start with Juraj Slafkovsky. As a contract that will pay him $7.6 million per season for 8 more years after this one. And to borrow a phrase from our friends at Overdrive, what is your level of concern around Slafkovsky living up to this contract?
It's marginal, Sarah. I mean, there's a little concern. It's a big contract that was given to him very early on with not a ton of sample size in his game. But I think even this year, where the goals, of course, are not where you want them to be, but the point total is still on pace for almost 50 points this season. And Juraj Slafkovsky is still one of the youngest players in the NHL. He will get better. He will improve. And I think also the one thing we've learned this year is that at this point, he's not capable of driving a line on his own. And that's fine, but what he doesn't have when he's not playing with Nick Suzuki is maybe people to help him be successful at 5-on-5 and producing offense. When the Habs get better, he will look much better, but you got to think, Sarah, when the cap gets up to 95, 100, 105, which it will during the course of this contract, paying a guy $7 million who's a second-line player at worst, which he already is not going to be a big burden. So I'm not that concerned about it.
Okay, that's good. Now we've got Lane Hutson. He continues to be an interesting story. He was a top 3 Calder choice on FanDuel early in the season, but now he's a 49-1 long shot. So if and when this team comes out of the rebuild, what is his ideal role?
So Lane Hutson on a good team, his job looks like this. He is a first-unit power play quarterback. We've seen already how magical he can be with his feet, with his vision, with his passing. Now, as he gets older, he's going to have to work on his shot, get it harder, get it more effective, and that will allow him to be a threat to shoot it, as well as being very good at passing it. So first unit power play, second pairing defenseman who plays sheltered minutes. Play with a good defensive guy, don't play him against the other team's best players, let him attack the third and fourth lines of the opposition. He's not bad defensively, but you can really take advantage of his offensive instincts. And when his team has the puck a lot more often, guess what? He doesn't have to defend quite as much. So the team gets better. He gets a slightly diminished role in the second pair, but really offensive situations, and you will see a very effective long-term NHLer.
It seems both these guys need the team to get better because Habs are projected to finish bottom 5 this season. Only San Jose, Chicago, and Anaheim have shorter odds to finish dead last. We know Ivan Demidov is coming, and they have a lot of promising young defensemen. So, MJ, when you assess the Canadiens right now, be honest, is the glass half full or half empty?
All right, can I use a different phrase?
Sure.
Am I optimistic or pessimistic? What I am is realistic, and that they're not there yet. And that the easiest part of a rebuild is the first part that the Habs have just gone through. Tearing it down and getting bad. Sarah, you and I can do that. We can figure that one out. It's building it back up and making it great. Now they've built it back up and they've made it competitive. They have some compelling young pieces that should continue to improve. But the hardest part is taking it from being competitive to being Stanley Cup competitive. So I'm realistic that rebuilds don't take 2 years, and they're not always linear where you bottom out and then you just go straight line up until wherever you stop. There are some ebbs and flows in a rebuild, and that's where the Montreal Canadiens are right now. They're ebbing and they're flowing. They're maybe not going to compete for a playoff spot as they continue to try to get better, but the hardest part still remains, which means putting the finishing touches and acquiring more top-end talent to take this team from going to be a marginal playoff competitive team to potentially a Stanley Cup competitive team in the next 3 years still to go.
Okay, 3 years still to go, but this conversation should be very different 3 years down the road. Thanks, MJ.